Hey everyone, welcome back to KCR. My name is Bella, and today we are joined with producer and media artist Luke Borker Smith, otherwise known as the act Parlor Magic. How are you, Luke?
Good, Bella. How are you? It's good to be here.
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Well, Luke, for those who aren't familiar, could you give us a little introduction on yourself and your music?
Sure, yeah. As you said, my name is Luke. I am a producer, engineer, musician based here in New York City. And I've been performing as or with Parlor Magic for about 6 years now. And Parlor Magic is a sort of synth pop adjacent project. Genres are always a little tricky, but we make music with synths and guitars and other instruments as well. And yeah, that's what it is.
You guys, Parlor Magic just released their newest album, The Embassy, after 2 years of waiting for another masterpiece. And I've got to say, this album is a must listen. Personally, my favorite track off the album is Echo Baby. I love that song. Is there a track you would recommend to listeners?
A track I would recommend. I the first single we put out was Altar Boy, so I suppose that's a good logical place to start. But Echo Baby being the first track on the album is also a really good place to start. So you kind of can't go wrong.
Hmm. Well, Luke, are you the mastermind behind this album?
It's quite a word. I was involved in every step of its production, including the writing and the recording. So I'll take the blame for it. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Can you run us through the creative process of the making from your point of view? Was there any
Sure.
more
Yeah.
sorry, was there any more traveling involved in this album like there was in your past album, Saturn Return?
Wow, you've done your homework. Yes. Basically, I think the story of this album really comes down to the collaborative spirit with which it was recorded. And by that, I mean the first two Parlor Magic albums were written almost entirely by me and produced very much largely by me. Second album with myself and my producer Fab DuPont. But this one was completely different in the sense of how many people touched each song, at least
Mhm,
seven, eight, nine, in some cases, 12, 13. And that was very deliberate. I think that playing those Saturn Return songs live with the band when we were touring last time around kind of showed me that when you play with other people, those songs kind of took on a life of their own. And by the end of the tour, it kind of become something a little bit more maybe energetic, a little bit more raw, a little bit more distorted in some places. And that gave me the sort of idea of having a whole album that was recorded that way. So we moved away from drum machines and towards live drums and maybe perhaps away from synthesizers in some places and towards guitars and having multiple people in a room together playing at the same time I think was what allowed us to do that.
mhm. Do the places you travel to influence the album and how it comes out? Like the
Yes,
different
you did ask about travel.
vibe?
um yeah, for sure. I think, well, about half of this album was written in Berlin. Two of my closest collaborators are there, and I'd already written a couple of songs for the embassy, but I spent a big chunk of last spring into summer over there working with Flo and Luca in Berlin, who are just two amazing musicians and friends. And we worked out of this studio that is in a big complex called Funk House, which used to be the East German state radio broadcast headquarters. So it's this big brutalist building on a sprawling campus. And it has that very kind of communist brutalist architecture, and I think the vibe of that building very much rubbed off on the aesthetic and themes of the embassy, of what I suppose became the embassy.
Mhm. Well, tell us about the embassy. What is it about? Is how different is it from your previous projects?
I think that sonically it's quite different. Yeah, I mean, I think that again, genre's tough, maybe reductive, but I think that certainly I would be more tempted to call this a rock album than a synth pop album, personally. But, I know that it's up for debate. Um, it's certainly different. I think that the themes that it deals with lyrically are things that I've circled before, but I think that it's a much more realized version of something I feel like it feels like an arrival of somewhere I'd been trying to maybe get on the first couple of records. And I think that it's sort of really sit transitory spaces and moments. And I think that I believe that the most important moments in a life are transitional. It's when you meet someone or leave something or arrive somewhere. And I think that that was very much the kind of thinking that led me down the path of the embassy lyrically and, of course, sonically as well.
That's so interesting. Well, is there a track that feels special to you? And if so, could you tell us the story behind it and why you feel so attached to it?
Sure. I think that, I think a good barometer for me when I'm working on something is every song has to have its little moment in the sun where it feels like the most important thing I've ever done. And if it doesn't, then something's probably not quite right. So I think that there's something I could say about each of those songs. Um, One song that I'm particularly interested in because it was sort of something that put us in a new direction that I want to maybe chase a little bit further is the song Arizona 2000.
Mhm.
That was the first time we sort of the song itself was a bit different in that it was a guitar based song that I actually wrote on an acoustic guitar at home. But the thing that makes it, I think, separates it from the rest of the album really is that it's the first time we've used a section. We have a full string arrangement done by this incredible arranger named Christine Kruda, um, and it only appears for a brief moment in the song, and it I think that was very much by design. And getting to sort of dabble in strings world for sure made me, um, I suppose, excited about the prospect of doing it again, maybe
Mhm.
on a larger scale.
Apart from the music itself, Parlor Magic has visuals that stand out, attaching an identity to
Thank you.
this record from frosted doors to long empty hallways and office spaces. The Embassy gives off sort of a noir style, like a mysterious vibe. Who or what influenced these themes? Let's talk about these color choices.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think that the visuals have always been something that are very important to me. I would never put that above the music, certainly, but I think that when I'm working on something, I'm also concurrently imagining what the visual world that it is coming from might look like. In this case, I think that the visuals for the embassy were very much inspired by the work of Greg Girard, who's a Canadian photographer who's always been a bit of a hero of mine, and he was kind enough to let us use a photo he took as the cover of the embassy. It's a photo that he took in Naha in Okinawa in the early 1980s, and I've since sort of gotten to know Greg a bit, and it's been a treat getting to work with him. And yeah, I think that his work really does a very good job of exploring some of the same transitional, dare I say, liminal spaces that I like to sort of orbit in my music. So I think that, yeah, Greg's work was a big part of it.
Of course, you mentioned Mr. Gerard, Greg Gerard, and his album cover or the album cover of the Embassy. How does the album cover reflect what's held inside the record?
What's held inside? I think that, I mean, for me, it's kind of, I don't know how to put it into words really, but looking at that picture, it always seemed to me to very I don't know I don't know at what point in time I sort of began imagining that as the cover, but it was a picture I'd been familiar with for a long time. I own one of his books that has it in it, and I've saw it a long time ago. It always seemed to make sense. I think that it certainly works on surface level with the title, But I think that that radio tower in the distance is very on theme. If you listen sort of to the lyrics across the embassy, there's a lot of stuff about communication and broken signals and indeed faint radio signals and broadcasts and all of that. So just I don't know, there's something about that picture that really, aside from just it's how evocative it is visually,
Mhm.
which is very, there was something about that photo that made me, that drew me in. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Okay, I got a couple questions left for you. And there's one particular
Sure.
that I ask all of the artists that come through because students here at San Diego State want to know more about you. What makes you unique? What sets you apart from your average artist?
Oh, Bella, I don't know how to answer that. I think that that's that's for the listeners and concert attendees of Parlor Magic to decide.
Well, I heard your schedule is packed this week with rehearsals. What are we preparing for?
We are preparing to go on tour across the United States, which is something we're all very much looking forward to, given that it's been about a year since we've gotten the chance to do that. And yeah, we're going to start on the West Coast next week, starting in San Francisco, and indeed it will be in your neck of the woods a few days later, down in San Diego, which is that was a fun show last time. I remember very distinctly we caught a great sunset at the beach before the show, and the water and the sand soaked through my leather shoes, and I performed that night with wet feet, but it was worth it.
Mm. Well, how do you like performing? Do you like touring and doing shows?
I think I've learned to like it a lot more. Yeah, it was never maybe the first thing that I wanted to do. Not that I didn't want to, but I'd never. I was a producer and I'm sort of studio guy for a long time. And I think fronting a band certainly wasn't something that maybe came naturally to me. But I think that I've surprised myself with how much I've sort of learned to enjoy the fun of it all, of being on stage and performing and having, and meeting people at shows and having them come and looking out and watching people who know the words. It's an incredible feeling. It's really hard to describe. And I think, yeah, I think I've almost surprised myself with how excited I am to get back on the road. It's something that sort of, prior to that last record, I hadn't really done, and certainly not with the band. But we have a really good time, and the shows, we played just a couple of shows so far on this tour, with it really ramping up next week. But the first few that we played have been great, and it feels, we have another member in the band now. We've gone from 3 people to 4 people, which I think adds another dimension to the sound. Yeah, I can't wait.
Well, you heard it here, guys. Parlor Magic is touring the US. Their next show is on August 6th in San Francisco, followed by shows in Fresno, Los Angeles, and Aztecs if you're interested by now. Parlor Magic will perform on August 10th in San Diego at the Soda Bar. For more information, go to parlormagic.com. Luke, thank you so much for your time. It seems like this tour is truly going to be something special, and I've seen a couple of clips actually from maybe your past tours, but you have like two microphones. You have your regular one and then you have like a telephone. Is that for the embassy?
Yeah, that's new. Yeah, that's new this year. I used that telephone microphone I actually used in the studio making the record. You can hear if it sounds like I'm singing through a telephone, I really am. So it was actually a bit of a sort of last second decision to bring that thing to the rehearsal room the day we started, but I'm glad we did. It's paid off for us. It's a good shtick.
I feel like it adds more personality to the album, especially with the whole like noir style thing. It's cool that you have like a telephone.
Yeah, I'm glad that someone had the thought to make that.
Well, do you have a message for the students at State? One last final message.
Um, yes, Aztecs, come see Parlor Magic at Soda Bar on August 10th. It's gonna be a really fun show, and maybe you'll make a new friend or two along the way.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and I wish you luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Bella. I really appreciate the conversation.
As tags, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one.